So here we are back with part 2, and we'll just look at a couple more of these pathing possibilities. Not in particular detail, I'll just do screenshots of them after this one, because then I'd like to go in and have a look at how you achieve some of these lovely effects with these stitches, even though it's the same fill, but just by applying the different effects to it, you got such a different look with each of them. Right, so back to this pathing. I'm just going to move on quickly onto the green, because the only difference that we've got here is your blue started here, you went here, a little travel line up into the head, started here and finished here. Because the orange on this one had finished over here, it was just a switch around. The head starts in on this one here, finishes over this side, does the little walk down this part here, and then obviously into this wing here. So just switches things around just because it starts and stops in a different place, but no change to the actual objects in themselves. So in between, I'm going to pause the video and just load the next one so that it'll just look like screenshots. We get the idea of what we're about. So quickly moving through on this one, the green, it finished here. There was a long jump down to this flower which finished here, crossed over the line up onto this little row of dots that are on the neck ring. This wing happened to finish on this bit here, up to the neck ring, across here. Yes, there's still a long jump, and then all that happened here was put in a travel line to walk up to the top here. So it was just a case of shortening a jump, nothing more. On the terracotta, fairly straightforward. You started here, scoot across to here, up, down, onto this one, up, down, and then you jump down to here, up to this one, onto this one, and you came across to this one, down here, up to this piece that runs at the satin stitch that runs across the wing, out to here, out, down here, and then back to this one here where you finished there, and then you jump down to these little bits that are the beginnings of the ornaments on that leaf or flower here. Not a great deal of difference, but obviously because we're starting from a different place over here, it started here, up, across, down. If you remember, the green finished here, up, across, down, over, over. A little bit of reordering on the wing. This bit came out of here, up to here and finished there, down to this one, up here, across, up to this part here, and then we had to scoot back to this one. We've got no choice, but at least we're not crossing any lines. Up to here, out to this one, finish here, a little short jump up to this one here, because when the pink starts we can literally just come straight down the side of it here. This one over here, because it finishes here, will go over to the pink starting here. And here we are with the pink. So we start here, jump up to this one, go up these, back down, up to this little piece, up to this little piece, down to these little dots again across the neck, down to the flower, which stitches the lower petal around in that direction. Then you come back to this side, go around here, and then jump back over here to this dot, that one, that one, that one, here, and eventually you finish there. On this side, because we finished up here on that orange piece, it starts here, moves down, fills this one and this one, which the finish points are put here, so it's just a case of altering those. One jump down this side through the center, and again this one, start and finish here, this one, start and finish here, and then this one comes and then finish this one here, down, around here, over to the flower. Oops, a daisy, didn't mean to move that. That flows all the way around there. Put in one little travel line to walk it back to this inner set of petals, and from that up to the 3 rings to here. So just to recap, you can't get away from having all these jumps, and whether you put the trims in or not on the actual machine, if you don't put the trims in, you've got the jump stitches to cut. If you do put the trims in, then you've got this stepping out, moving out and coming back all the time together with the little ends on them. So which way you go, it's a matter of personal choice, I suppose. It just depends on how much work you want to do yourself and how much you want the machine to do. Right, I'm going to take that off there because we've done enough of that resequencing example, and in fact I can actually close it, and I shall press 0 to recenter this design. I need to bring back object properties, and I'd like to take a look at some of these stitches here. So going across to the objects bar, and what I'd like to look at is to compare that stitch and what you did here, and with the fills on each of these big pieces here. So not so much the motif fill, but that piece in there, because they're all very, very similar and yet they all look so different. Very cleverly done. So on this sun here and on the head, you use the same fill and you use the same settings and the same effect. So we'll just look at one for the moment, and I'm just going to hide unselected. It's tatami. I'll highlight it and then you can see what the settings are. It's tatami. You set your density at 0.43, stitch length of 4, travel on edge, and you left the underlay and edge run and the tatami at 4 and 3, and then you used 2 effects on it. Obviously you used the Florentine, which puts the curve into it, but then you also used profile number 3 of this gradient fill, or the graduated fill, with a minimum spacing of 4 and a maximum space 0.4 and a maximum spacing of 2. And what that does was that created that mesh effect for you. So the underlay creates one part of it, and the cover stitching together with the graduated fill in it creates the other, and it's very effective indeed. And if we go back to the photograph, you can see it creates that lovely mesh effect. It looks almost like it's a very, very fine lacy knitting almost that's laid onto it. Let's go back here, and you used exactly that same settings on the head. And hide all. Okay, now let's now look at this one, because interestingly enough, it's exactly the same weave fill, it's exactly the same 0.3 and 4 setting. The effects that you've used on it are profile 3 and your same settings here for your gradient fill and the Florentine, but on this occasion what you've actually done is you've put your zigzag in, and so you're not getting this mesh effect, and your travel on edge here forces this second underlay to go around the outside. And just watch what happens when I take it off. Take the travel on edge off and you get the tatami coming back in underneath. Put the travel edge on and it goes back, and that zigzag then follows that same swooping line. Very effective indeed. Now you've done a similar thing on these parts of the wings here. So exactly the same settings here, except slightly different distance on the fills. And then finally on this one here, again you've used the tatami, but this time, even though you've used the Florentine, you didn't use the graduated fill, and you've used edge run and zigzag as your underlay under those pieces there. And bringing it back into the 3D true view with the button there, you can see, in fact, when we look at these, again, this is exactly the same weave fill, but because you've applied the radial effect on it, it just creates something completely different. And again, the same weave fill here on these pieces, but again you've just left it without adding effects to it, and the combination all round is beautiful. It just does give a lovely effect. So going back to your stitch out, yes, when you say that you were pleased with it, I can see why. I think I would be too. And maybe the only thing that you perhaps might want to think about in the future is not just pathing with travel lines, but also trying to keep your jumps where you have to have them as short as possible, and wherever possible try to work your way around a design that you don't cross over where you've been before. But in the meantime, I hope you actually stitch this out and use it on something, because it is very nice.